What if I told you that right now, inside your chest, a fist-sized lump of muscle is generating enough electrical force to jolt itself back to life, using a signal so precise that scientists still can't fully replicate it in a lab? Most people think of the heart as a pump, a simple machine. Squeeze, release, squeeze, release. But that idea is almost insultingly incomplete. The human heart is closer to a self-sustaining power plant with its own private electrical grid. It starts firing 3 weeks after conception and doesn't stop until the day you die, roughly 3 billion beats, without a single scheduled maintenance break. Here's the part that unsettles even cardiologists. If you removed a heart from a body right now and kept its cells alive, they would continue beating on their own, with no brain attached, no nervous system telling them what to do. The heart doesn't wait for permission from your brain to beat. It generates its own instructions. That single fact should change how you see this organ forever. Let's get inside it. The heart sits slightly left of center in your chest, cushioned between your lungs, protected by the ribcage like a vault door. It's about the size of your closed fist, weighs roughly 300 grams, and moves nearly 7,500 liters of blood every single day. Enough to fill a small tanker truck by the time the sun sets. But here's where most explanations stop. The heart isn't just chambers. It's wrapped in a tough, slippery sac called the pericardium. It lets the heart slide and beat inside your chest without friction damage, the same way oil protects an engine. Peel that away, and you find the myocardium, the muscular wall itself, made of a type of tissue that exists nowhere else. Cardiac muscle cells are branched, interconnected, and electrically wired to each other in a way skeletal muscle simply isn't. That's why your heart can contract as one unified wave instead of a disorganized twitch. Unlike almost every other cell type in your body, the vast majority of your heart cells were with you before you were born. Skin cells replace themselves every few weeks. Your gut lining renews itself in days. But heart muscle cells are among the longest lived, damage them severely, and your body has almost no ability to regrow them. If your heart can't really repair itself, how has it kept 8 billion humans alive for an average of 70+ years each? The answer involves an electrical system so elegant that engineers have spent decades trying to reverse engineer it. They've only managed a crude imitation of what your body builds automatically before you're even born. We've only looked at the walls of the vault. We haven't opened the door yet, because what happens next is where the human heart stops looking like biology and starts looking like impossible engineering. Picture this: a pump so precise that if even one drop of blood flowed backward instead of forward, you would be dead within minutes. That's not an exaggeration. That's literally what your heart prevents every single second, using for one-way doors most people never think about until they fail. Let's talk about how blood actually moves, because this is where the heart stops looking like a simple muscle and starts looking like sophisticated plumbing. It is a system that human engineers have never managed to fully copy. Blood doesn't just slosh around randomly inside your heart. It follows an exact, unchangeable route, in one direction only, every single time. Deoxygenated blood, blood that has already delivered its oxygen and picked up carbon dioxide, enters through the right atrium. From there, it drops into the right ventricle, which pumps it straight to the lungs. In the lungs, something remarkable happens. Carbon dioxide is released, and fresh oxygen is absorbed across membranes, so thin that gas molecules pass through instantly. That freshly oxygenated blood then returns to the heart, this time entering the left atrium, before dropping into the left ventricle. The left ventricle is the single strongest chamber in your entire body. It generates enough force to push blood through your aorta. It travels all the way to your fingertips, your toes, and your brain, fighting gravity and resistance the entire way. This is why heart attacks disproportionately damage the left ventricle. It works harder than any other chamber, every single beat of your life. But none of this would function without the hearts for valves. Genuinely one of the most underrated engineering feats in human biology. Each valve acts like a one-way door. The tricuspid and mitral valves sit between the atria and ventricles. The pulmonary and aortic valves sit at the exit points, controlling blood leaving the heart. These valves open and slam shut 100,000 times a day. That slamming sound, the loop-dub you hear with a stethoscope, is literally the sound of these doors closing to stop blood from flowing backward. If a valve becomes leaky or too stiff, blood starts pooling in the wrong place, forcing the heart to work harder. Left untreated, this is how valve disease slowly bleeds the heart of its efficiency, sometimes over decades, without a single symptom. Now here's where things get genuinely mysterious. None of this pumping would matter without perfect timing, and that timing doesn't come from your brain. It comes from a tiny cluster of specialized cells in the right atrium called the sinoatrial node. This heart's natural pacemaker spontaneously generates an electrical signal, completely on its own, roughly 60 to 100 times a minute at rest. That signal spreads across the atria, causing them to contract, then passes through a checkpoint called the atrioventricular node. The node deliberately delays the signal for a fraction of a second, just long enough to let the ventricles fill completely before they squeeze. Think about what that means. Your heart isn't just contracting, it's timing itself, with a built-in delay mechanism, to maximize blood movement. No brain input required, no conscious thought. It's been doing this since before you had thoughts to think. This electrical signal travels through your heart at speeds of up to 1 meter per second, through specialized fibers. The bundle of His and Purkinje fibers are pathways discovered in the late 1800s, and parts of how they synchronize remain a mystery. When this system misfires, even slightly, you get what's called an arrhythmia, an irregular heartbeat. Some are harmless blips. Others, like atrial fibrillation, quietly increase your risk of stroke by up to 5 times. Often the person feels almost nothing unusual. And here's something that should disturb you. Your heart rate is deeply tied to your emotions. Fear, love, grief, even an intense movie scene can all measurably alter your heart rhythm through your nervous system, proving that the phrase, "follow your heart," may be more literally true than anyone intended. Your heart beats 100,000 times a day, 42 million times a year, and around 3 billion times across an average lifetime. All this happens without you ever consciously commanding a single beat. And yet, this astonishingly reliable system is also fragile. That same electrical precision, that one-way valve system, that relentless left ventricle, is exactly what starts to break down when things go wrong. What happens when this system fails isn't gradual. Sometimes, it happens in seconds, and it's the leading cause of death on Earth. Heart disease kills more people every single year than all cancers combined. Not because it's more aggressive or harder to treat, but because it's silent and, by the time most people notice something's wrong, the damage has already been done. Let's talk about how the most reliable machine in your body starts to fail. It almost always begins with atherosclerosis, a slow, decades-long buildup of fatty deposits, called plaque, inside your artery walls. This isn't sudden. It's a process that can start as early as your 20s, quietly narrowing the pipes that feed your heart with oxygen-rich blood. Autopsies on young soldiers have shown early-stage plaque buildup in men barely out of their teens. Proof. This process starts far earlier than most assume. The arteries most at risk are the coronary arteries, the specific vessels that wrap around the heart itself and feed its own blood supply. Yes, the organ that pumps blood to your entire body needs its own private blood supply too. When that supply gets cut off, the consequences are immediate. This is what a heart attack actually is. Not a vague collapse, a specific mechanical event. Plaque inside a coronary artery ruptures. Your body, mistaking this for an injury, rushes to form a blood clot to seal it. But that clot can block the entire artery. Once blood flow stops, heart muscle downstream starts dying within minutes. This is why doctors say, time is muscle. Now here's something that surprises most. Heart attacks don't always look like the movies. No dramatic chest-clutching collapse. Many present as jaw pain, nausea, cold sweats, or extreme fatigue, especially in women, whose symptoms are misdiagnosed far more often than men's. Then there's high blood pressure, often called the silent killer. It's simply the force your blood exerts against artery walls. When it's chronically too high, it's like running a garden hose at fire hydrant pressure, year after year. Artery walls stiffen, and the heart has to work harder to push blood through rigid pipes, raising the risk of heart failure. Smoking damages artery walls directly. Poor diet accelerates plaque formation. Chronic stress floods your body with cortisol and adrenaline. Lack of sleep disrupts hormonal regulation, and genetics load the gun before you're even born. Family history is a very strong predictor. But here's where modern medicine has made remarkable progress. Cardiologists can now thread a catheter-thin, flexible tube through an artery. They guide it to a blocked artery and insert a tiny mesh tube, called a stent, to physically hold the artery open again. For more severe blockages, surgeons perform bypass grafting, literally rerouting blood flow around a blocked artery using a healthy vessel. It sounds primitive, but it's one of the most refined surgical procedures in modern medicine, with survival rates unthinkable 70 years ago. Imaging technology has transformed early detection. CT angiograms can now spot calcium buildup years before a person feels anything at all. This turns a disease that used to announce itself with a heart attack into one that can be caught and managed in advance. But even with every advanced stents, bypass surgery, early imaging, there's one problem modern medicine still hasn't solved. Once heart muscle dies, it doesn't come back the way skin or bone does. Or at least, that's what scientists believed. Until a series of recent discoveries started challenging one of the oldest assumptions in all of cardiology. For over a century, doctors believed one thing about the heart, with absolute certainty. Once heart muscle dies, it's gone forever. No regrowth, no repair. Just scar tissue, permanently. That belief shaped how heart disease was treated for generations. It might be wrong. In 2009, researchers using a technique involving carbon-14 dating discovered something that stunned the cardiology world. Human heart cells do renew, just at an almost invisible rate. A 25-year-old replaces roughly 1% of their heart cells per year. By age 75, that rate drops to about 0.45% annually. Slow, almost negligible over a single year, but real. The heart isn't completely frozen after all. It's just renewing itself at a pace so slow it took decades of research to even detect it. That discovery cracked open an entirely new field: cardiac regeneration. Scientists have since successfully regrown functioning heart tissue in animal studies using stem cells. In early human trials, patients with severe heart damage have received injections of lab-grown cardiac cells directly into scarred tissue. Results have been mixed and far from a cure. But for the first time, researchers are asking, can we regrow a human heart? Researchers have used 3D bioprinting to construct small-scale, functioning heart tissue structures layer by layer, using a patient's own cells. It's nowhere near printing a full transplantable heart yet. But the goal is explicit: eliminate the transplant waiting list entirely. The heart still outperforms almost every machine humans have ever built. No engineered pump lasts 70+ years running continuously. No man-made electrical system self-generates its own timing signal from birth to death with that level of reliability. Mechanical hearts and pacemakers exist, and they save lives, but they are an approximation of what biology solved without an engineer. Consider the sheer scale. Roughly 3 billion beats. Enough blood moved to fill more than 3 million bathtubs. A continuous electrical circuit running longer than most civilizations have existed, without a backup generator, until the very end. Most people go their lives without understanding it. They know it beats, but not that it builds its own electricity. Its rhythm is quietly shaped by fear and love and grief, in ways science is still mapping. Researchers are racing to unlock its ability to heal itself, before disease ever gets the chance to cause permanent damage. That's the real story of the human heart. Not just a pump. A self-powered, biological machine that has kept every human alive. The one organ you've never had to think about is the one thing that's never stopped working for you. Not once. Not ever. Until, eventually, it does.